if I still need it.
Okay.
But yeah, I probably should have waited till after this, but I wanted to be really consistent. So I try to take it, at 5 o'clock. And so I've been trying to be really consistent with it after this, but I wanted to be really consistent.
Okay. So I get it. That's what they tell you. They tell you to be consistent on the time. But yeah, I can only take medicine at night before I go to bed. It's just, I take my vitamins in the morning.
Yeah, I took my vitamin B12 this morning, waiting on it to kick in. And then I take my multivitamins. Typically, I'll eat something after this and then take all of the other slew of vitamins that I take.
You take a slew of vitamins, huh?
Yeah.
I like that pattern on that shirt.
Thank you.
Huh. Yeah.
My favorite designer, Ellen Tracy.
Not familiar.
Yeah. I don't know much of, every time I pick up something, it's hers if I go to Marshall's or the Rack without even knowing. So I'm like, I must really like her. So I buy a lot of her pieces, and I don't intentionally look for her clothes, but my hands are always drawn to pick them up off of the rack.
Okay. I have people like that that I'm drawn to, just because of the way, it's interesting because one of the things I try my best to do is be conscious all the time. You know how you're conscious of what looks good on your own body?
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to be conscious about what looks good on my body.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there are certain people that just seem to hang better on my body. So I get it. So yeah, it's a girl, this today. I don't know how many times I hit the darn snooze button.
You were tired?
I got in the sauna last night before I went to bed. And so by the time I was tired. I didn't have a nap yesterday. Although I was like constantly thinking that I was going to have one. I didn't have one. And then by the time I got into bed, I shut it down. And then I did not. It was like this morning, it was just like, okay, 10 more minutes. Okay, now 10 more minutes. So yeah, it was one of those kind of mornings. So I don't know, who knows, at some point, maybe I'll play catch up. I don't know. What's that you drinking? That's not coffee. It's not tea. What is it?
Water.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new season.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I didn't get any. I did go outside and shovel a little bit because we had a whole new snow that came down, and that was
this morning
a bit.
Yeah.
So I did do that. I did not feel moved to take off my shoes though.
Is it cold out there? You went out there this morning or yesterday?
I did not go out. I opened the door, let the dog out this morning, and she walked out, and she was like, she started to go down the steps, and she was like, nope. She was like, she right there on the porch and came right back in. So, which when it's too cold for her, she doesn't, she kind of like assesses the situation and
right.
I ain't mad at her either. So yeah, it was cool, but I did go out and shovel for a minute, and yeah, I was not trying to do all of that stuff. I was like, okay, time to go back in.
Yeah, I looked out the window, and the fluffy grayishness of the clouds like are matching the tops of the the rooftops. Like it was all like one picture. You couldn't distinguish from the rooftop to the clouds. I'm like, this is a weird kind of morning out there in the sky. It's kind of different. Never noticed that before. So it looks frigid, like very cold out there.
Uh-huh. Well, as I can see the sun rising, it's a pinkish kind of
I
it's
see that. Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, I can see that.
And the other night, I almost was like, I saw the moonlight and I was like, oh, that's a beautiful moon. I didn't feel prompted to call you, but
It was that
um,
little half one. It was like a half,
uh-huh,
like it was
uh-huh.
like protruding, literally protruding out of the sky. Didn't it look that way?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
did. And it was seemed like it was hanging low because it was so big. I was like,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. Hmm.
I love that.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm
We're
excited.
wolves undercover.
Look, women who run with wolves. um, it's really interesting to me. There was a well, I was reading yesterday. I did a lot of reading over the weekend, and I love how like things just kind of like when I read them, it's like I gotta sit with the idea for a bit. Um, and so there was a lot of stuff that that I got into this past weekend. And in the Course in Miracles, I'm just looking at that as if I'm doing it for the first time. Thank
Hmm.
goodness for that, right? Because one of the things that it talks about is how we're always seeing in the past based on the past. And so as I'm reading and going through it, I'm really trying to be present with the present moment information. And I'm
Mm.
not in a place of resistance like I have been in the past. So when it says, I do not perceive my own best interest, right, in any situation, when it says that, I'm not wrestling up against it like I normally might. So so I'm sitting up there saying to myself, I'm not seeing or perceiving in my own best interest. And so that opens me up to have maybe a different perception.
Did you have any opportunities of that this weekend?
So that was just today's
Oh, it's today's. Oh, okay.
today's. So of course the exercises ask you to close your eyes and search your mind for the situation. It says the thing is, in the situation involving, say for instance, if I was to say, in the situation involving my website, I would like like say for instance, I would like marketing to happen. And I would like, I would love for people to get, go to my website and get some of the ideas that I share. And it asks you to name all the outcomes that you would like to have. And so you're searching your mind for individual things, like in the situation of dating, I would like for this to happen. I'd like to have somebody that is like-minded, or at least open-minded,
Yeah.
or and so it goes through and it says to say what you would like to see. And then as you go through that, then say, but I don't perceive my own best interest.
Hmm.
And so even as I'm doing those exercises, it's like I'm open to the possibility that I don't
Yeah.
perceive my own best interest. Whereas when I've done this before, I've sat in the thing of, yeah, who are you to tell me if I know my best interest or not? You know,
No, you did not.
I, 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 I think that I have struggled. I haven't like just surrendered
Hmm.
to this. What was the word that
Cap-
Carolyn
Capitulate.
said? She said that there is a difference between relinquish and surrender.
Yes.
Right. So I don't know that I had energetically surrendered to this course before.
Okay.
So it's landing on me different,
Yeah.
which is
Hmm.
beautiful.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
It's
for me, that challenge, because I've done that homework assignment before. For me, all of the one thing I is challenging about the Course in Miracles work is that it's the day. It's just that moment. And so I'm like, if I could just practice it more, maybe I'll get good at it, because I feel like I surrender and then pick it back up. Like maybe next week it'll be although, just like little sayings will pop up from A Course in Miracles that will remind you. But when I'm in it, I'm like, oh, I hope I can just maintain this tomorrow. I hope I can maintain that place tomorrow, because I find in my own personal journey that sometimes surrendering to a different outcome is a big challenge.
yeah. Well, I think that while it may not be present at mind for me, like this lesson tomorrow may be a
Mhm.
different lesson. And so
Mhm.
even though it's not present at mind, it's a building block that takes me from one perspective to the other. So it's not that I totally lose it. And you know how I am. It's like all of a sudden a quote will come to me, like
Yes.
maybe
Hmm.
it'll come to me, like
Right.
it causes me to self-correct.
Mhm.
Um, and so because I have that, it's in there, that the lessons are in there, it comes up when I need to hear it. And so but this today, and since I've been doing it this year, it's just really landing different, because I think I'm in a place of receptivity. um
Hmm.
how do I want to say it? I think that with the awareness, there's new awareness in there. So this is like an evolution. It's an evolution in this, because I've done this workbook at least, I don't know how many times, but I've done it a few times. So it's not as if it's brand new, but I'm reading it as if it's new. It's really interesting to me. It's really interesting to me. So I'm yeah, I'm really having a fun time with this. Um, but that was not what I necessarily was thinking about when I started telling you about um, this whole thing. Let's see. Um, let me read this to you, and then good morning to whoever's watching. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Let me read this to you. There's a Taoist story of a rainmaker. And it's a short story about a village in China where no rain had fallen for a very long time. The monks had tried everything. The locals had performed every ritual to invoke rain, and yet nothing had proven effective. Finally, they agreed to summon an old Taoist priest known as the Rainmaker to come and to visit their village. He arrived, he looked around, and then he made a modest request. He says, all I need is a quiet house to stay in, a small garden to tend, and to be given total solitude. And so the villagers honored his request and left him alone. On the fourth day, the rain began to fall. Excited, the people of the village ran over to the Rainmaker to thank him for what he had done. And he said, "I have done nothing." "Of course you have," they insisted. "After 4 days, only 4 days, this long-awaited rain, it finally has come."
Mhm.
And again, he said, "I have done nothing. Before I came, I was aligned and in order within myself. Upon arrival, I became infected by the disorder that permeated this village.
Mm, mm.
Those days of requested solitude, the days of tending the garden, were needed for me to restore my own inner order.
Yes,
I was able to do that. The rain began to fall. I love
that's so good.
it.
Oh
Only,
my
and
goodness.
he finished it. He says, "It only happened once I took responsibility for myself and my own order."
Mhm.
So when we talk about this thing of getting our, whether it's surrendering to a work or getting our own house in order, when we are in order, what it does is it causes those around us to also get in order. They also get in alignment because it's really all minds are connected. And so once we get ourselves together, we don't have to point the finger and talk about and be about worrying about what everybody else is doing. Work on yourself and everything else falls into place. I love that story. I loved it. So good morning, Michael, Sarika, good morning.
Good morning. Morning,
Monday.
good morning, good morning. Happy marvelous Monday.
Yes, yes. So that 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 whole thing was just so powerful for me. It reminds me too of, remember the story, well, it's not a story, but remember how, I don't know if this was your truth or not, but it's most of our truth, that as women, our bodies entrain to one another.
Mhm.
And so when when they work together or when they live together, it's as if our our natural cycles line up. I mean, and sometimes it takes a minute for the alignment to happen, but they begin to line up. And so we know it because, it's like one of those instinctive things. We don't know it on a mental level, but what we begin to see is that we all start to have our cycles at the same time. There's this thing. And so if you want to get your stuff together, you get your stuff together and it automatically begins to resonate. There was one of the things that the scientists said is that they used to keep, how to keep, it sounds like one of those mad scientist things that they do, but they said that they would keep animal parts in these beakers in a lab. And he says that if they had like animal hearts and the hearts started beating, one heartbeat basically caused others to be in alignment. So it's kind of like, proximity,
Hmm.
the proximity of people, we begin to resonate together. Whatever that may mean, it's entrainment. And so, I just kept thinking how powerful that is. Then when we work on ourselves, right, it becomes the truth about the energy that we carry around us.
Yep.
Yes,
Cool.
good stuff. All right, where are we?
We are on page 16. Mm. Oh, the first, the first chapter of 15, right? Because you read the quote and we talked about the quote. The past is never dead. It's not even the past,
Right. Okay.
or
So
it's not even past.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, 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 yes. For some reason, I want to go and grab my other pair of glasses.
You got new
Um,
ones?
huh?
You got
No,
your new, oh, I thought you got
no,
those.
no. I can keep these on. I keep feeling like I need to push these up. I don't know why it's tripping
Hmm.
me up. So we talked about Freud's contemporary Carl Jung. We did not talk about that yet. So
No.
let's see. So let's see, where did we leave off at?
Did we talk
So,
about traumatic reenactments and repetitious compulsions?
oh, we did not.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, let me start up a little further up. Instead of fragments of memory dispersed as images, body sensations, and words are stored in our unconsciousness and can become activated later by anything that is remotely reminiscent of the original experience. And so we did talk about that when we said that sometimes what the trauma that we are dealing with is not even the present trauma, but it's triggered a memory from the past trauma. I think we talked about that in terms of something that happened to me.
Yeah.
But it was that it triggered a past trauma.
Your
And
reaction to it. Mm-hmm.
yes. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is exactly what he's saying here is that if it even remotely triggers something. And so that's why sometimes you see people who get mad at you and they're not even mad about what they think they're mad about in the moment.
Most times, yeah, we're not angry about what we think we're angry about. Or, another good exercise is whatever was happening, did it warrant that measure of emotional energy? That will let you know that that's a trigger too, because the emotional energy given to a situation kind of measures if I'm here in the present or if I'm coming from someplace back there. Like, whoa, what was that? Like, who did
Yeah.
that to you?
So one of the things that this reminds me of is like sometimes somebody will trigger something that you heard from your mother or your father. um and automatically when you hear it, it's like something revs up inside of you, like right. And that, like, yes, that over response is like, whoa, let me there was a guy one time who I sat on a radio show, and I guess this guy wanted to say to me that he listened to the radio show. He listened, but he didn't hear it, because one of the things I was talking about was some of the things that trigger me. And in my family, a lot of people don't know this. In my family, my dad used to holler up the steps in the morning time, off and on, right? And it was off your butts and on your feet. Now, my dad was in the military. Why you need to do this with kids, beyond me. But we didn't really have like days off. We went to school on Monday through Friday. On Saturday, we still had to get up and do what we call work detail, because we couldn't go outside and play like all the other kids on the street were outside playing. No, Saturday was your work detail. So that was, those days we were in the house cleaning, doing all of that stuff, and then we could go out, right? And so even on the summer break, we had chores and stuff that we had to do. So we didn't have that kind of like laid back kids, let kids be kids stuff. We had chores. So so my dad used to wake us up so early that it was, as adults, if you catch one of us sleeping, we still act like we're not sleeping, right? Like I wasn't sleeping. I was woke. I was woke because nobody is supposed to be in bed after the sun comes up. Nobody. It's just something we do. We could even ask now. Now we're getting to the point where you can say, "Are you in the bed?" Yeah, but I was up earlier. It's
So
just
what was the message? What was the message that you were avoiding by
so
making sure you got up?
so so this guy, I was saying to them on the radio show about how we were always like on, this is my siblings and we're always like on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I can't stand when when I'm caught like not on, or if somebody calls me lazy. I said, that's a worse offense than you saying I'm ugly, right? That would just be like fighting words almost, because none of us, we weren't raised like that. So to me, that's offensive. And so, I don't know, a week later, this guy walks into a place and looks at me and said, "What's up, lazy?" Girl, hopefully, hopefully he has recovered, right? Because I cursed that man which way. I was like, and you don't know me like that, right? It was like overkill. My reaction was like Hiroshima. I was just like, now, because I had already said that, and for him to walk in thinking that was funny, I was just like, no, no. I have gotten better, right? I have gotten better, but it was so y'all don't try that on me. If I say that something is an issue with me, I ain't expecting people to come up and actually try to test it out, right? That's not my expectation. And he's like, who has to respect your zones, right? But I'm saying.
I'm just curious, was he were you in the middle of doing something that would quantify the lazy, or was he being facetious and just walked up and said,
I was standing in the post office, right? So he must have
right.
thought it was funny.
Yeah, he thought it was funny.
He thought it was funny.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. It was a trigger.
Better
Like
now.
I said, it was a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already said that, right? And so for him to like want to come in and test it out was like, okay, yeah, no, that you ain't that close to me. That I'm not gonna come up out of my bag of I came up out of a bag on him, girl. So you shaking your head at me like, oh, poor thing. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's so not what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but yeah, that was the bag that I came out of. And so I don't know where if there was an original thing on that. I think that it was always, and my siblings are just like this. We are, it's like we're on. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the programming says that you had to be. There was a judgment if you weren't, and the judgment was you were lazy. That's why I was asking you, what did it mean for you not to be in compliance? And so that makes sense. That was the narrative. It was like, if I wasn't on, then I'm being lazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a thing of my parents saying something like, don't be lazy. It was the expectancy that you know, you on your feet, that means you are, you know, that it was that kind of thing. So and what I don't know if your parents are like this, but my dad was, you know, one of those people who let you know about how he plowed the mule and how much he accomplished before such and such a time of day. By the time people are eating breakfast, he done did this and he done did that and blah blah
My
blah blah blah.
mother,
You know, and
my
then
mom.
still had to walk a couple of country miles to get to school, right? With holes in his shoes, and here we are having it good, you know, not even appreciating what it is that how good we,
Oh,
you
yeah. My
know.
mother was like that. She didn't come from the South. But she had that same energy as a single parent. It was all, all the time.
Mhm.
Interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So that sort of that it sort of um sets up an expectation, right? Yeah, Sarika said her mom wouldn't let her sleep past 10. Oh, past 10. We'd be lucky if we made it past 7. But but I get that, you know, and there's a song that used to be out. This woman, she was doing this song, and I think she was like, that man is mine from the top of his head to the soles of his feet. And she talks about how she buys the food that he eats and all of this stuff. It's one of those old bluesy songs, but it was,
Sounds bluesy.
yeah, but it made it into, it was kind of like a crossover, so it wasn't totally bluesy. um for some reason I want to say the Afro to it, Afro do it, blah, 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 blah. But she goes through this whole thing and she talks about, she says in the midst of the song, she says, if I got to get up and go to work, every able body in the household has to get up and go to work. And that was my dad. It was, if I got to go out here and work on this car, then you're going to stand there and hand me the tools.
Hmm.
Because if I'm gonna work, every able body in here is also gonna go and get up and work.
Hmm.
So so yes, being called lazy is a major offense, right? That is because it ain't even in our DNA. It's not even in our DNA. If we sitting down, is because of something, right? It's not just because we want to like, oh, I couldn't be bothered. We don't ever have that. I couldn't be bothered attitude. I know people with that I couldn't be bothered attitude, but my family is not one of them. Yeah, and my sister, not too long ago, just last year, my sister said, she said to me, "Oh my gosh, I forgot what it was like when a bishop showed up." She was like, she hires people to do stuff that she says that they don't do as hard working as we do.
Hmm.
So so it's like if there's something to be done, it's like it's
Thorough.
yeah,
Yeah, let's
we know
do
how
it.
to get some
Hmm.
stuff done. Don't always do it now, but we know how to get some stuff done. So it's just hilarious. So that's a trigger. It's a trigger. Um, and so
So
yes,
do you imagine that if you were called that today, that your reaction would be as
severe.
severe?
I don't imagine so. I think I have the wherewithal in me to think, oh, you don't know me.
Yeah.
To sort of to mediate my reaction. I do think that that has changed. And I think that I wanted to be clear with him that, some people will will cross the line with you, You know, some people tippy toe up to the line, and some people want to cross the line.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Huh?
I'm learning that.
Yeah, yeah, they will like actually like they gonna just step over the line as if they don't see a line present. And so if I think that a lot of times we owe it to them to be clear and unambiguous about where the line is.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing personal, but
So true.
just in case you didn't see that line, let me show you where it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And so I guess that's what the triggers do, because they're like little landmines waiting to be touched.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to make it seem as though it's not a healthy thing to have boundaries or some type of parameters.
Well, boundaries and triggers are way different.
Right. Well, but okay.
You have the boundaries to avoid the triggers. That's healthy. You can do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But most times what happens is that people have triggers, and the people that they have the triggers on, with, or around decide, I'm going to make that a boundary. They create the boundary. Like, okay, I won't do that. But it's not like this is the boundary, is because the reaction says I'm not going to do that. But you're not reacting. Well, for you, you were. But most people that have triggers are not like doing that like a scare you away. It's literally something that goes off inside of them. Like, it's not at you, but most time it is at your family and at your coworkers and things like that. But the reality is that it's something that's rising up inside of you, some inner work that is yours to work on. So it becomes a boundary for the people who have had the wonderful experience of triggering you. But it's like, well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because the work to do is to get that off of you and know that I'm not lazy. So whatever. But
Yeah.
while the words still cause a visceral experience inside of you, that's the body. Because if you don't get it out, it will. We already just talked about that. It's going to monasticize and become something else.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, and I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, we all have something, right?
Oh my God, yes.
And so it is being able to be aware of what that is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if it means that I need to bring this up so I can look at it more closely, because
Mm-hmm.
at one time I didn't have the understanding of,
Yeah.
and then sometimes what you see is you see people that poke the lion. Is that what you say? They
No,
want to,
poke the bear, poke the lion.
yeah, they want to keep poking, trying to see whether it is whether they're testing whether they're testing you or whatever it is. Sometimes they want to keep poking, trying to figure out, you know, whether or not you actually a lion, or or whether you just a pussycat. And then once they find out that, would see that fierceness or that ferociousness come up, then that too is an indicator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 So
Great example.
so once they are triggered, it is an invisible rewind button that is pressed,
Mm-hmm.
causing us to reenact aspects of the original trauma in our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like when he says to reenact the trauma? Does that mean like, okay, like say for instance, you driving oh girl, 137 shots. Did you watch that movie? The
No.
documentary? It's traumatic, right?
Oh, I
But
can't watch.
yeah, it's about what happened here in Cleveland
Oh, I've
when
heard people talking about it.
yeah, when that when Melissa McVeigh and what is that guy's name? Is it Michael? Anyway, when they were shot down in the street, and the trigger is that this police officer, as they were driving by, the car backfired.
You mentioned that before.
Yes, the car backfired. So now a lot of people, when they have been to war, they hear a car backfire, and what they do is they hit the ground, right? Because suddenly they're back in, they're back in on the battlefield, wherever the
Yes.
battlefield is.
Yeah.
And
Or
so,
they can just break out into a very profuse sweat. So
mhm,
you can still be almost present here in this moment, but the nervous system takes over, and you just start to break out into I mean, like a big raindrop sweating or shaking that happens if they're not hitting the ground, but the body will tell the story. It just like you go into a freeze mode or a
mhm,
fawning, if something happens. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so when it says this here thing about that you reenact the aspects of the original trauma in their day-to-day lives. And so, unconsciously, it says we could find ourselves reacting to certain people, events, or situations in old and familiar ways that echo from the past. And so sometimes we see this happening all over the place, right? Kids who react to police officers, even though they don't have a history of it, right, that they can remember, but they react in ways that are curious because there is something on a cellular level sometimes that they were also reacting to.
Mhm.
We'll get into that later.
Yes, that's so yummy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but this is part of this whole thing. So it says, so he goes on to say that Sigmund Freud identified this pattern more than 100 years ago, right? Traumatic reenactment or repetition compulsion is what they called it back then. It's an attempt of the unconscious to replay what's unresolved so we can get it right.
Mhm.
Right. So we could get it right.
Mhm. So, I told you when I was the director of the Crisis Pregnancy Center, there would be young ladies that would be forced to have abortions by their parents. And then maybe the next year or 9 months later or 6 months later, they'll be right back in my office. Miss Stephanie, I need to take a pregnancy test. Because whatever the journey is was supposed to be is coming, is going to be, and it's this correction. And that was my first time noticing that, how our bodies are like, no, this is what we're supposed to be doing. I didn't even know half the things that I understand now, but when it was happening, I thought, this is a very unconscious will. Like, this person, not her, not the young lady that's sitting in front of me, but this person, this being, whether it was the baby before or this baby now, this woman, this young lady, it was supposed to usher in someone onto this planet. Like, it just felt so, this is a Christian organization. So it just felt so like I could just, in my imagination at that time, it was like God means that thing. That's how I felt when those young ladies would come back. It was like this repeated, but I think because abortion is so traumatic, now that I understand that aspect of it, so traumatic to the body, so traumatic to the brain, that it makes sense that a person would seek comfort in the way that they sought the comfort. Now they're pregnant, and here we go again, because it's trying to repair itself. It's trying to correct what the brain deems as a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have, and I'm glad you said that because I did have a friend, I do have a friend who back in the day got 4 abortions, almost like within a 2-year period. And I kept saying, abortion is not birth control. Abortion is not birth control. You can't do this, right? We would have conversations and talks about it. And after, sometimes after a while, people just get mad at you and stop having the conversation with you about it. At least with me, because I'm so freaking insistent about stuff. That may not seem any of my business. I don't know that I was trying to judge her, but I kept saying that this is not sustainable. This is not a way of dealing with, with stuff. I didn't have the awareness or the information that I have now. I couldn't say, oh, this is the universe trying to self-correct. This is your body. But she knew something was wrong with it too. The way that she was dealing with it, she knew that she had to do something different. And so, yes, those things are traumatic. Yes, they are. Yeah, it's yeah, I got that's a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I could tell a story about that too. I won't. Yeah, because that's still, and then you really find out who people are too. I will tell that story because it was tripped out to me. There's a guy who I dated, and I dated this man for a long time. It was we started off in the 80s, I think it was, and I dated him for a long while. And I remember it was, say for instance, we were off and on over a long period of time, 10, 15 years or something, off and on, off and on. Anyway, one particular time I remember I thought I had gotten pregnant. And then all of a sudden, I encountered a man that I did not know. I was like, oh, that's one of those things like,
maybe it was a trigger for him.
who are you? And he's like yelling at me about, and I'm thinking, who is this man? Who is this man? Right? But so
Obviously, it was some kind of trigger for him because he was super reactive.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's interesting that we don't have conversations like that. If you're listening, put it on your question list. Just have a conversation. If you're dating and sexually active with somebody, I think that that's a conversation. If it's a possibility, it probably should be a conversation. Yeah, because people have very strong opinions on either side about a subject like that. And then it's so crazy because I know we're going to get into this later on in the book, but a lot of those strong opinions either come from experiences that they've had that, like just let's take, for instance, the young ladies that I was servicing, their parents demanded that this be what happens. Or some bloodline have had several abortions or they've had miscarriages. And so the whole energy around that type of circumstance can trigger people to, you don't know, like it could be because of the person, or it could be something in their genealogy, in their bloodline that is like, oh no, like it just doesn't sit well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but definitely if there was a reaction, it was probably a trigger.
Yeah. So he says the unconscious drive to relieve past events could be one of the mechanisms that work with families repeat when they repeat unresolved traumas in future generations. And so these types of things, like you were just saying, these types of things are coming up for healing. It's not
Yes.
it's not just that it comes up, but it comes up for us to, like, to bring some kind of healing around a particular event, whatever that may mean in a person's family. So one of the things that I know is that patterns continue on until we disrupt the patterns.
Right.
And
That's the
so
goal.
yeah. And so if, say, for instance, you recognize that there is a particular pattern that needs to be changed, it'll keep coming up for the attention so that you can make some resolution around it and not just continue on with the same thing over and over again, unchecked, unresolved, because a lot of times what we try to do is try to push it down or to ignore it as if it's not there.
Well, I think sometimes people don't even know that there is a pattern. I recognized a pattern the other day when laying in the bed, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" And I had to think back several times on my journey where that has been my truth, and now I'm going to explore why that's happening. What that all means. But it's something so simple. It's about moving and relocating and just certain things that um how I end up where I end up and what's going on in my life and the places that I move to and the people that I move um and all of these patterns are when I am alone, which is um another pattern that I recognize that this is the certain things, certain type of people or certain type of energies are come into my space when I'm not in a connection.
Mhm.
And I just was like, I want to pay attention to this pattern because obviously there's something in there that needs to be healed in me, and I want it. I want it gone. I'm done with that. I'm not taking this crap with me. So, but yeah, so sometimes patterns are happening and we are very much unaware of them.
Right,
And
right.
the is to pay attention. That's why meditation is so good because we're slowing down. We're slowing down.
Yeah, and sometimes what we do is rather than have the ability to slow down and reflect, we're so busy caught up in the cyclones of our own life and trying to figure out how to get out of the cyclone that we continuously create cyclones.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
part of it is being able to step back from that and have that moment of clarity and reflection to say, hey, if it has to do with relocation or if it has to do with jobs, what is it about me that keeps me in that grasping mode, right? And sometimes you'll see this happening over and over again. People are so busy grasping, they can never figure out, well, what would make me happy? And
Mm-hmm.
how do I get off of this roller coaster ride?
Mm-hmm.
So it's being able to sit in a space and allow yourself to be open to something new. And the beauty of that Rainmaker story is that, I need that solitude. I need to work in the garden. I need to have order in my space so that I can correct this. Because if I get here in this space and I let the space dictate who I'm going to be,
That's
then I can never get to a place of solid ground. But instead, I do the things that I know causes me to self-correct,
it.
right? And so whatever that may mean for any one of us, what is it that causes our self-correction?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, you know, I went over a friend of mine's house this past weekend. And is really interesting when you're in somebody else's space, to go in and be able to feel the space, right? You know, I can have a tendency to be, do I want to say, I know how to be very, I know how to be junky, I know how to be messy in my space, but I also know what it feels like to be very orderly in a space.
Mhm.
I've had both. And part of it is, you know, what motivates that? Is it the perception sometimes, and a lot of people have this as trauma or drama in their lives, where you know, like I just described for me and my siblings, how we came up, there is this thing of always like being orderly because of other people's perceptions, or what they will think
What
about.
that means, what that means, or what that says about me
Right,
or my family.
right. And so they have that type of mechanism. And on the other hand, it is allowing or giving yourself permission to simply just be and do what makes you comfortable. A lot of times we think that what makes us comfortable is living up to other people's expectations. I mean, it's all over the board. I don't even know all the things that we have around this
There's
notion.
sometimes there's a sense of security when I'm living in those expectations, even though it was a security as a little person. And so then when we're still finding the security and keeping the rules is where we have to start questioning, is that still working for us? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But, you know, sometimes somebody's doing orderly or following the process is for a safety net. You know, some people are like, hey, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't care about their opinion. And they drop it, you
Mhm,
know, and
mhm.
then some people maintain it. And what I have found is that some of the maintenance of certain things are because it's a sense of security. Whether it's real security or not, I don't know. I'm not their therapist, but in general, a lot of times people will keep that like keep the tradition or the expectation going because it feels safe.
Right, right, right. Yep. So it's all in just getting to know what our own things are, and being able to look at them, to not like just react, but to be able to hold it out objectively and look at it and decide what works for you, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, all here to teach us.
yes, and make some decisions about who we want to be and how we want to show up, and if that's a thing, I mean, you know, because we have been beat up over stuff like that. I mean, beat up, beat down, beat around, all of that stuff. We give ourselves so much. And I hear people talk about it all the time as if it is something that still plagues them into into older age. Their mother's expectations.
Yes.
I mean, I know even I have done it. Like, you know, sometimes I catch myself, Stephanie, I have caught myself asking people, is this homemade? And they look at me like, yeah, but it came out of a box. It's like, you know, what is that about? If you take the time to bake a cake, what if it tastes good? What difference does it make if it came out of a box, or if you actually had to, you know, to measure the flour and measure everything yourself? What difference does it make, right?
Right. Yeah. Look at that. That's good.
Each other. We
That,
do it to each other. It's like, ah,
that's so good.
yeah. And here I am. I can't even make myself a cake because it's got to be from scratch, because that's what my grandmother always did. The biscuits got to be from scratch with buttermilk, right? Because that's what
Pancakes too. That's me. I can't make pancakes. Just I gotta have buttermilk. Even if I use the box, I have to have buttermilk and real butter. So I
right.
might as well have just made it from scratch.
So
That's funny. It's
you know,
cute.
yes, we get caught up in that stuff, and it just we got to figure out how to set ourselves free. Whatever that means.
Unconscious living. But
You you
that's
know,
what it is.
and this is the last thing I'm gonna say about this, but they said that that they had a cake mix. They used to make cake mix that the only thing you had to do was add water and put it into the oven. And what they found out was is that people rejected that because it seemed like it was way too easy.
I remember those.
Yeah, it was way too easy, and they didn't like it because it didn't seem like it took any action on their part.
Well,
And
we
so,
used to make them as teenagers, and that
yeah,
that was fun. Like just
yeah,
throw it in the oven, a little square, little pan.
they-
It came in a little pan for a real oven. It was a whatever 8 by 8 or 8 9, but whatever. The
uh-huh,
little
yeah.
I didn't know that, but now
But
they're making cakes in a cup.
yeah, now they found out though that people were having issues with that, and so
What?
they pulled back some of the ingredients. So you would at least have to add oil and eggs, right? But it
That's
was
interesting.
it's the
Yes.
psychological stuff
Wow.
of feeling like you're actually participating in the baking that was important, and so they changed that up. Yep.
That's so wow. Okay, that makes sense. I sure remember that cake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well,
All
thank you
right.
so much
Thank
for this.
you. Have a
We
marvelous
up
Monday.
here. Yes,
Yes.
marvelous Monday. All right. So thank you, everybody.
You.
Um, yeah, appreciate you being here, and we
Yes.
will see you tomorrow, God willing, and the creek don't rise. Thank you, Stephanie. You got a
Thank
busy day?
you. I do. I do. But I'm gonna go shovel really fast and then warm up and get busy.
All right. All
All
right.
right.
Have a good one. All right, y'all. I'm out of here as well. I thank you for being here and journeying with us. Yeah, I got a little work to do here. So I thank you. And we'll be here tomorrow, God willing, the creek don't rise, to continue on this journey of unfolding. All right. So be blessed. Have a marvelous Monday, and I'll see you tomorrow.